Another category of model of communication is the transactional models. Transactional models explain direct personal communication processes where two-way feedback is immediate. Means the transactional models of communication describes communication as a process in which communicators generate social realities within social, relational, and cultural contexts. In this model, we don't just communicate to exchange messages. We communicate to create relationships, form intercultural alliances, shape our self-concepts, and engage with others in dialogue to create communities. In short, we don't communicate about our realities. Communication helps to construct our realities. Transaction model considers how social, relational, and cultural contexts frame the influence communication encounters. So when we say social context, refers to the stated rules or unstated norms that guide communication. As you are socializing into the nursing profession, for example, you learned rules and norms for communicating, which are often referred to as communication strategies and principles. Some common rules that influence social context in nursing include being truthful during your conversations, encouraging the client to speak, demonstrating empathy, speaking clearly, making eye contact, and many more. Next one, we have here relational context. Relational context includes the previous interpersonal history and type of relationship you have with a person. You communicate differently from someone you just met versus someone you have known for a long time. Initial interactions with people tend to be more highly scripted and governed by established norms and rules. For example, as a nurse, you should always engage in communication in a professional manner because the nurse-client relationship is a professional one, not a personal one. Next one, we have here the cultural context. Cultural context includes various aspects of identity, such as gender, sexual orientation, class, and ability. While you may be able to identify some aspect of the cultural context within a communication encounter, there may also be cultural influence that you can't see. A competent communicator shouldn't assume they know all the cultural context a person brings to an encounter, because not all cultural identities are visible. Some people, especially those with identities that have been historically marginalized, are highly aware that their cultural identities influence their communication and influence how others communicate with them. Conversely, people with identities that are dominant or in the majority are rarely, if ever, think about the role their cultural identities play in their communication. There are two models under transactional communications. We have here Barnlund's transactional model and Dan's helical model. Barnlund's transactional model of communication is a model that explores interpersonal, immediate feedback communication. Central to this approach is the idea that feedback for the sender is the reply for the receiver. Barnlund's transactional model is a multi-layered feedback system. This is a continuous process where the sender and receiver interchanges their places and both are equally important. The message passing takes place with the constant feedback being provided from both parties. A feedback for one is the message for the other. Here are the components of Barnlund's model. So cues refers to the sign for doing something. As per Barnlunds, there are public cues, private cues, and behavioral cues. In the model diagram shown, spiral lines give graphic representation in the assumptions like public cues and private cues. So public cues, we have here the CPU, are physical, environmental, or artificial, and natural or man-made. Next one, we have here the private cues or the CPR, are also known as private object of orientation, which includes senses of a person. Both these cues can be verbal as well as non-verbal. Another set of cues are behavioral cues. Behavioral cues can be verbal, or we have here the CBEHV, as well as non-verbal or the CBEH and V. The arrows and their directions show that the message is intentionally sent and actively taken when the receivers play a key role of giving feedback. Arrows also known the process of production of technical encoding, interpretation, and decoding. The jack lines show that the availability of cues can be unlimited and are denoted as VVV or 4V. The valence signs, we have here the positive, neutral or zero, and negative, are also attached to these types of cues, which illustrated the amount, degree, strength, and attractiveness of the cues in the message. Speech arc refers to particular stance of communication in the model. Filters are the realities of people engaged in communication. Here, the senders and receivers' personal filters might differ according to cultures, traditions, content of the message, and many more. So noise is the problem that arises in communication flow and disturbs the message flow. So here are the advantages of Barnlund's transactional model of communication. The model shows shared field experience of the sender and receiver. Next one, transactional model talks about simultaneous message sending, noise, and feedback. And the last one, Barnlund's model is taken by critics as the most systematic model of communication. Here are the disadvantages of Barnlund's transaction model of communication. Number one, Barnlund's model is very complex. Two, both the sender and receiver must understand the code sent by the other. So they must each possess a similar code book. If not, there will be no successful communication with these two. Okay? So, if you have any questions about this topic, please comment your name. We will address all your questions during our synchronous classes. If none, kindly click the thumbs up. Thank you.